Hello, my name is Laura Vargas. I'm the Director of Outreach Programs for SAD-OD, which stands for Support After a Death by Overdose. In today's training, we're going to briefly discuss cultural humility and its importance in grief support. Let's begin by explaining what culture is. All of our lives have been shaped by the culture in which we are immersed in and by the intersecting cultures that we identify with. Culture is comprised of the customs, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. Distinct cultures can be found in ethnic groups, religious groups, interest groups, and other groups of individuals that share similarities and are considered social groups, meaning they have their own cultures. The term cultural competence used to be the idea in the forefront of our efforts to be sensitive toward and respectful of all cultures. But cultural humility is now the preferred approach because it goes beyond cultural competence. Cultural humility moves away from the idea that we can become experts on other people's cultures and toward the idea that we must be open-minded learners. We must be introspective and look inward at our own culture and take stock of how our experiences of culture impacts the way we go through the world. We cannot assume that we can learn everything about a culture. It is not possible to become experts on all the cultures in the world. But instead, when we approach culture from the idea that there's so much to learn that we must engage in lifelong learning, that is where we can be culturally humble. Practicing cultural humility. Of course, knowing facts about different cultures can be valuable. Learning from people themselves about their culture and their needs helps us in our day-to-day lives. Cultural humility is a way of being with the differences of others' cultures by being sensitive to personal expressions of culture. We and other people are unique and autonomous, and in order to understand the differences among us, we must ask questions rather than assume or presume knowledge. This is known as the teach me method, which empowers the other person to express from their point of view how they perceive their culture. Cultural humility requires employing skills and attitudes such as not knowing, being willing to learn, not trying to be an expert, and not trying to get it right. This truly is a simple way to be respectful of others' cultures. It helps us not to overthink situations or to skip over what the other person might need. Most importantly, it positions people to be the experts on their own culture. I'd like to share with you some guidance from the Lighthouse for Grieving Children and Families that thoughtfully covers how to demonstrate cultural humility. These questions are introspective and can be the basis for practicing cultural humility. Questions such as, am I reflective? What is my own personal culture? I would say, what are my own personal cultures? We can identify with lots of different cultures, all of the different social groups that we're a part of. Am I clear about my personal values, beliefs, thoughts, feelings in a particular situation? How do my values and beliefs affect how I perceive others? How do they affect how I treat others? What are my biases, sensitivities, and triggers with respect to another person's expression of culture? Here are some questions we can ask others, also from the Lighthouse for Grieving Children and Families. Can I learn more about how you or your family? Can you teach me how you? Can you describe for me what something from the person's culture looks like? What would I need to know about you so I can be of help or support? Please show me. These questions, while they were designed for children, can be applicable to adults and individuals of all ages. They are questions that give a person an opportunity to respond however they'd like to, and to take the conversation in the direction they would like to go. They're open-ended questions that invite a person to share things that are important to them. They keep you from assuming what a person's response will be. They come from a place of curiosity, a desire to learn, a desire to be taught. By you coming from a perspective of cultural humility, people can gain a sense of ownership over their own experience. It gives them ownership over their story, including how much they share or don't share. All of these approaches can help build relationships. When people feel heard, seen, respected, and valued, they are more likely to talk about difficult things that are on their mind. By inviting someone to share about their culture in this way, then listening to them wholeheartedly, you can get a good understanding of the person's culture based not on a book or an expert, but instead based on the person's own perspective about their culture. To sincerely ask these questions and then listen and absorb a person's answers requires us to really do some internal examination. We may think that we don't have biases, but we all have biases. Rather than running away from them or hiding from them, we can recognize them and acknowledge them. We can sincerely ask how cultural forces have impacted us, and most importantly, we can learn to do things differently. The purpose of cultural humility is to change what we do in a way that strengthens our interactions and relationships with everyone we encounter. It works to our mutual advantage to think more deeply about these matters and to meaningfully explore the particular situation and the specific person in front of us. By approaching interactions this way, we can do so much more to build relationships and be helpful to others than when we're focused on just trying to get it right. So, why is cultural humility important in the grief experience? People's personal grief experience is inextricably linked to the cultures that they identify with. It's crucial to approach grief from a lens of cultural humility because we have no idea what somebody needs that will help them feel supported in their grief. Every person is different. If we assume that what we think is right for somebody, we may run the risk of invalidating them and their pain, which may damage our connection with them or even marginalize them. The most important thing that we can do is to approach people with healthy curiosity, with open mindedness, and by recognizing the nature and value of people's differences. No one person grieves the same as anybody else. Grief is unique and individual, and while there were similarities among people's experiences of grief, every person is on their own unique grief journey. People are influenced by many, many cultures, and culture has been a force in everyone's life from the very first day. Everything a person has done from childhood on that has shaped them as a member of their culture may be an influence on their grief experience. Culture influences how people process their grief and pain and find their way through difficult and emotional times. By inviting people to own their stories, we empower them. Interacting with others through a lens of cultural humility and applying person centered and trauma informed principles helps them see that we care about them for who they are and have their best interests in mind. By asking open ended questions and listening compassionately, we invite people to own their stories and share them in their own way. Approaching interactions by respecting people's autonomy is the foundation for helping people be who they are and express themselves in ways that are helpful to them. Treating people as unique, special individuals creates an environment where sharing about grief can feel natural and healing, even if their grief is difficult for them to talk about. Learning to put aside your assumptions about what people are like, what they are going through, and what they need is a practice that you can turn into a habit to strengthen your connection to people who are grieving. Simply by assuming an attitude of not knowing and using the teach me method, you can hold a space for people where their individual experience and their specific needs are at the center of the conversation. This is an effective way to affirm to people that they are experts in their life and in their grief, and to position yourself to be as helpful as possible to them. Thank you so much for tuning in to this brief introduction to cultural humility in the grief experience. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@sadod.org. As a reminder, we have tons of free resources on our website, www.sadod.org. We also offer a variety of trainings, workshops, and a bunch of other resources. So please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything that we can do to help you help grieving people. That is what we are most passionate about. Thank you so much.